Good to go.
All right, cool. Hey, welcome back to All Strings Attached. I finally got a pretty cool name and a pretty cool studio I get to do it out of. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. Welcome to the episode. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. I'm just trying to stay consistent as I possibly can. So I have an awesome guest today. So I want to introduce him, and then we're going to jump into some juicy topics today. My guest is, I think, locally to Bakersfield. He is a content creator. I have loved his aesthetic. I've loved the things that he makes. He is a musician. He's a music producer. So help me welcome. His friends call him Klay. Goes by Chris too, but help me welcome Klay. What's up, bro?
What's up, bro? Nothing much. Thanks for having me on.
Heck yeah. I'm excited, bro, just because even before I moved officially over here, I started seeing your stuff, which is wild.
That's dope.
So I've always appreciated other creatives, for sure. And just what you do, what you create is something that I love to give kudos to creatives, for sure. So keep doing what you're doing. And you're into music. I'm a worship leader and musician type of thing, kind of, a little bit retired now. Some people know that. But yeah, man, so thanks for coming. I definitely want to jump into some topics. I guess the first thing, how did you even get into creating stuff, like content creation? What was the inspiration there?
Man, so that's an awesome story. So grew up in a Christian household. So grew up Christian.
Yeah.
Grew up in a house filled with musicians. So I was always, even though I don't remember my younger years, I have pictures of me playing with sample instruments, little toy things. But it wasn't until 6th grade that I really got into music and that side of creativity, starting there. And the way God used my pride from the beginning and turned it around. So yeah, I guess we can start there with a little story.
Sure.
One of my friends, his name's Zeke, every Thursday he would bring his guitar, and the teacher would let him play during that lunch. So there's this particular Thursday where he didn't bring his guitar. And I decided, because I was arrogant and prideful, I was playing Guitar Hero 3 at this time. So I was like, hey, I know all the typical, Iron Man, Metallica 1, Metallica Master of Puppets.
Did you actually know it, or you just knew how to play Guitar Hero?
I just knew how to play Guitar Hero. I got all the way to expert level. You couldn't mess with me in Guitar Hero 3.
It ain't no problem.
Yeah. And so then he tells me, cool, next Thursday, I'm going to bring my guitar, you could show me. And on that bus ride home, I was pressed, bro. I was like, how am I going to do this? I don't even have a guitar. I don't have nothing. So I'm thinking about this the whole bus ride home. And as soon as I walk in the front door, my dad and my mom are standing there and they're like, go to your room. We got something for you. And as I walk into my room, a starter guitar and a mini amp were waiting for me.
Yeah.
And I learned the main riffs of every song I told them I knew by that Thursday. But it was that crazy, God using my pride but turning it around for good. Mm-hmm. And of course there was still pride in those months to come, as I grew into musicianship and really deciding to become humble. So it really just started there, growing into content creation later on. Yeah. I just always had an affinity for anything creative, whether it's drawing. I can kind of draw, paint. All that was really a part of my life since the beginning, and the way God turned around even the negative aspects of my character and personality and refining it and purifying it for His glory and my good. And It's taken so long, but it's just been an awesome process.
I think it's an ongoing process. I don't think that ever...
No.
I think once you feel like you've gotten there, that pride aspect returns. But, take me back to that. You said 6th grade was when that whole ordeal was going down, as far as the story you just told me.
Yeah.
How did you even identify that it was pride at that time? If I'm thinking back to 6th grade, I'm just thinking, dang, my jeans are all jacked up from playing at recess. I don't know nothing about pride, though, at 6th grade. How did you know that at the time?
I think it's just God giving me, vision ever since I was young.
Wow.
I've always been, not that I'm saying this out of pride, but God giving me a maturity much farther than where I was
than
at.
Your age.
Than my age.
Heck yeah.
So I didn't know the word pride then.
Sure.
But I definitely knew that I was like, what did I get myself into? Like,
I feel that. Okay.
Like, I was able to retrospect or, like, introspect in that bus ride home to say, like, I messed up.
Yeah, and then later, as you got older, you understood that was coming from a place of pride.
Yes.
Got you. Awesome. Well, yeah, continue. Content creation-wise, so you started playing guitar in 6th grade with a real guitar, not just killing it on Guitar Hero.
Right.
Like everyone else was, too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when did you ever get into like the camera stuff? I've seen you post like different videos. Like, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that wasn't till years on down the line after that.
Yeah.
And like my parents, they knew I was everything creative, so anything that had to do with creative arts, they would always decide to like hand down to me a camera or just show me Bob Ross on repeat, like when I was little. So like when I got particularly into camera stuff, I just start off with like point and shoots.
Sure.
So we'd always go on hiking trips, take landscape shots, do portraits of like the family and stuff.
Yeah.
And later on, I started getting into video and really loving film in particular.
Okay.
Because whenever people go out with me with movies, like, I'm an analytical person.
Uh-huh.
So they're like, why are you talking about the music in this scene and the way the shot pulls in at this part? I'm like,
bro.
I'm just like, bro, it's just so awesome, like, the way it's composed.
My wife gets so annoyed because we'll be watching, I don't know, random movies. And I'll be like, yo, that shot is crazy.
Right.
She's like, what are you talking about? So I get it.
Yeah, she's so focused on the, like...
She's like, well, that was a funny moment. But, like, the shot, though, the way they captured it was wild. Man, creative problems, you feel me?
Yeah. So, my first camera, Canon, what is that, the Rebel?
Yeah.
And then right now, I'm still not upgraded. Like, it'd be dope to get Blackmagic, like, somebody here...
It's an expensive hobby, bro.
Yeah, it definitely is.
No, Rebel was my first camera.
Yeah.
I got a Canon Rebel SL2. So don't knock on the Rebels, people. No. They are some solid little starters for sure. And even if I was to redo it, I would have stuck with the Rebel, and I would have bought better lenses. Mm-hmm. And just built from there, and then built my lens repertoire out. Yeah. But I was so focused, like, no, everyone has the cooler cameras. I got to get out of Rebel. Like, stay in Rebel. Like, it's all right. Learn how to use it first. Then upgrade. But go ahead.
Yeah, but moving through that whole creative process, like, sometimes, like, where the pride aspect comes back in, you feel like, I can do that better. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's not a pride thing, but more of like a confidence. Like, some people, they definitely have that pride to where they're like, I think I can do it better, but they really can't. Because they believe their competence for that skill is really high, but it's not. Wow. And I always felt like I had something to offer, but not coming from a place of like pride, but more so, I think, just God-given vision for whatever I did. So when I got into... more of the filmmaking aspect in terms of content creation, I really wanted to pursue that with excellence. Yeah. And not just post mediocre stuff. I mean, God sees everybody's heart, so it's not necessarily about always having a shot, but more so your heart behind it. Mm-hmm. But for those that do have the affinity for it, to do it with excellence.
It's an art form for you. Mm-hmm. It's not just like everyone else trying to get a little viral on Instagram or TikTok. No, you're trying to paint something on your canvas that not only resonates with you, but you feel like reflects your heart, right? As an art piece. So I can see that for sure. What is are you still doing any kind of more cinema stuff like that, film? Or is it more music? Because I know when I see your stuff now, it's like you're in the studio, you're grinding it out, you're helping people produce. What's that look like now?
Yeah, right now I'm just doing a lot of session work. So people asking, I need guitar on this. Yeah. Or I need to produce a song, can you help me write it out? That's where I'm at right now. And I used to be a lot more into filmmaking, so during the pandemic it was real heavy. Yeah. I would write like cinematic soundscapes and go like to the beach and film the beach for like a 30-minute like loop.
Yeah.
And then just upload that to Instagram, because at that time you were just at home and you were isolated. So like during that time I was really feeling like, let me pull you into a world
that you're not able to see right now.
Yeah. So whether it was like a train station or the beach or out in nature, like I would go out and get those shots and then write music to that particular scene.
Wow.
And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, verse, chorus, where it was just more cinematic type music. And then I would also write out a synopsis of a storyline that came to my mind when it came to that particular shot, and then just put it in the caption, and then have people read it while they watched or whatever.
You're such a creative, bro. My goodness.
Yeah. So
just art oozes out of you.
Thank you.
Could tell. That's awesome. I don't think I've been around many people like you. I've been around people that are like, yeah, I shoot video, I do podcasts, and they're content creators, sure. Yeah. But like, you're an actual artist.
Thank you.
Music, whether it's just like, hey, this scene at the beach, like I can see and hear music, and then you put creative to it. Like, that's wild. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Keep that up, man. That's awesome. Have you like produced any like Christian artists, or have you produced any other type of artists?
Yeah, I just done a lot of general work. Yeah, just a lot of general work. Different underground artists. Some friends from San Diego that do R&B.
That's awesome.
And then just written a lot of music, given it to friends, given it to other worship teams. Just, because it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about what God has put you here to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you surrender that, like, just
go ahead, God. Do your thing.
Do your thing. And sometimes you get in the way of yourself. Like, there's never not been a time where I haven't gotten in the way of myself. Like, I'll be honest. But it's when you're like, yeah, it's not about me.
Expand on that. What's that mean? Because I'm sure there are so many other people that can relate to that point. Or that maybe not even identify that that's happening.
Yeah.
That they're getting in their own way.
So, like, when I started my music journey, I'd be in this traveling youth band, which is a church band,
Sure.
Go out and play places. And throughout the early years, there was a lot of pride. Even though the people that knew me during that time, they'd be like, you were such a quiet person. Like, you don't really talk to anybody. Like, even if they couldn't see it on the inside, there would always be like a judgmental, seeing somebody else that's better and thinking I'm still better than them, or looking down on other people. That would spring up at different times in my early journey in music, particularly in Christian spaces. Mm-hmm. And I started to realize how unhealthy that was because of the culture that I grew up in some sense, where you feel insecure about yourself and you push those insecurities onto everybody else, and not truly dealing with them on the inside, and just going through life in those cycles.
Yeah.
Always living with anxiety. Like, there's always going to be somebody better than you. You got to accept that fact.
Yes.
And you're going to be better than some people. But the true growth when it comes to that particular area is where you choose to humble yourself.
And understand that neither matter. Whether you're better, whether you're not. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
I think that you hit it perfectly on the head. And I've even experienced that myself, that level of insecurity, to where I would ask, and my wife knows this, and it takes a level of maturity to understand and even know this about yourself. I would walk into rooms. I've grown up a pastor's kid my whole life. So that in itself brought on a whole different layer of issues, right, that I had to now work with. But I would walk into different rooms, whether it's different churches or different youth groups, even when I was younger. Literally, bro, I would look around and be like, oh, yeah, I'm probably the coolest dude here. That kind of stuff. And I kind of related to what you were saying, because it was always from a root of insecurity, of I need to be the best musician here, the best creative here, and creative down the road. But just that level of insecurity that kind of manifested itself in that way. And then understanding, years later, as I grew up and became a little bit more mature, and a lot of self-reflection, and really asking God to like put some flashlights on some things in my head and my heart. Those are the things that I realized. And I feel like there's a lot of people that don't even know how to identify that that are going through it right now.
You don't see it.
Yeah.
You don't see it when you're going through it. You can be standing in church and you can't even worship because you're so focused on the musicians.
Come on.
And that's one area in particular. Like I found myself like in those times I was worshiping on a team, yet when we'd go to churches, I couldn't worship.
Wow.
I was so focused on like they could have done that part better there and that part better there.
Oh, he messed up. He messed up that note. That chord was whack.
Yeah. Oh, that singer can't sing. And like I could sing, no.
Go ahead.
You know?
Yeah.
But you can't see it when you're going through it.
Yeah.
And that's why it takes other people in your life, like for you, your wife. Mm-hmm. It had to take somebody outside of yourself to make you realize, to see what you can see in your own life. Because we tend to put the blinders on ourselves.
Go ahead. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
We tend to put the blinders on ourselves to mask those insecurities. We mask them with pride, with looking at other people and judging them instead of truly, like you're saying, taking the time to truly self-reflect. To get in front of a mirror, look at yourself and confront those insecurities and the root of where they come from, which is even deeper.
Bro, oh my goodness, 100%. And I'm like, obviously, thank God, like I'm going to be 30 here soon, but thank God I've even understood and identified things at this age. How old are you?
25.
25. You've identified it seems like a lot earlier than even I did, right? You said you were already understanding this probably when you were in high school and in your college years, and at 25 you have that understanding. Some people don't get that till way later. Like, thank God we have it now.
Yeah.
To be able to help not only, as you get into different phases of life with your relationships, if you have kids, like for me, I'm so grateful that I get to help myself. God help me fix some of these issues so that now I'm not affecting how my wife and my relationship and all that works out and how I treat my kids, and understanding that, bro, you are jacked up. Do not give those issues to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. And to even go back to what you're saying about musicians, I had a train of thought, but it was pretty much in the realm of, I could feel you on as far as you'd walk into that was where I was going, as far as worship, right? And understanding, like you said, you couldn't worship sometimes when you would go to other churches, but when you're in it, like, you're going off, right? You're riffing, you're going crazy. I almost questioned, and I have questioned myself, of like, am I truly worshiping, or am I in love with the genre that I'm in?
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, do I just love the way this feels, and this is worship, or am I just getting down and I love this thing and I love this live music atmosphere? Because that's two different things.
Yeah.
Because I could be the person in the crowd spectating and be blank face, judging everything, coming from a completely bad place of bad heart posture, not from a place of worship, more of a place of, hey, this is just performance. When I'm on the stage, like going off and, getting upset because people aren't responding, like, was I worshiping, or was I in love with the genre? And I still ask myself that today.
Yeah.
Because, I'm still in that headspace sometimes, if I'm going to be honest with you, because I love music so much, but I know I love a music genre a lot, and God has been working on me, and people in my life have been helping me correct my heart posture. And I've talked about that in the last couple episodes I feel like that's what God is trying to help chisel some things off, because I've had so many bad not traits, but like bad habits growing up of like, this is just what I've always thought and done.
Yeah.
I've come from a legacy of musicians and pastors and preachers. So there's this level of like something that shouldn't be there that I'm trying to get off of me and break off of. But what do you think about that? Are people, as far as like, do you just love the genre, or are you actually worshiping? That's a pretty loaded question.
That's a super loaded question.
But it's so real, bro.
Yeah. Because like for me, even now, like I'll tell you, my favorite genres of music are those that have no lyrics. So like whether we talk about like just like jazz, instrumental jazz. If I do go into that world, I'll go into like Robert Glasper or Common with August Green, or I'll go into classical stuff. The
Such
typical
an artist,
Beethoven.
bro.
Like,
Such an artist.
That's where my home is.
Yeah.
And when it came to Christian music, I became jaded as a musician because I'm like, everything's starting to sound the same.
Yeah.
And are we falling in love with a particular style of music to where everything's starting to sound the same everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we really posturing our hearts in worship to God, regardless of where we're at, what we're doing, the type of music we choose to listen to?
Yeah.
And I understand the complexity in that, like, in terms of corporate worship in a church. Like, there are particular songs you definitely sing because there's a purpose to worship in the church context, inside the church.
Sure. So
it serves that purpose there. But finding myself at times becoming jaded, and to where, like, now I do listen to the go-to Christian songs, but I'm not out here constantly looking for new music in terms of the Christian space.
I struggle with the new music, bro.
Yeah.
I feel like, to your point of everything started to sound the same, a couple years ago, I think it started to be that way. And obviously everyone was trying to emulate, the Hillsongs of the world, and then Elevation started emulating them, and then Elevation became their own sound, and now everyone's trying to be Elevation, and I think all of that plays a part. So there's two sides of that. I think, they're genuinely trying to create. I don't have any problems with the bands. Obviously, you have to discern for yourself. I'm not getting into that as far as like, shouldn't sing that song in worship. Sure. Yeah. Decide for what you want. That's up to you. But like, I think everyone was trying to emulate, okay, what is today's sound for worship? Because it sounds different than it did 20 years ago. Yeah. It does. And I feel like it's shifting again and coming back to more of like a neo-gospel type of feel. I feel like that's becoming the thing again. Mm-hmm. It's coming back like to it was in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. Bringing that flavor back. But it just all depends, bro. It always comes back to heart posture. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's like, there are few things that when you ask, like, as far as a musician and worship leader and a creative, where do you create out of? Like, where's it coming from? Where do you worship out of? Regardless of genre, it could be classical Christian music. Yeah. And if it comes from a place of true worship and a correct heart posture, those are the only things you really need to filter through. Mm-hmm. Right? So, I think I want to go into your topics here, but we could talk about worship and music all day long for sure. So we'll have to do that again. But I want to segue a little bit. So you sent me some voice memos a couple days ago, as far as, hey, I'm just asking, like, hey, what's on your heart? What are you feeling right now as far as this current time? What are you struggling with? Just what was on your heart? And you told me surrender. Like true surrender to God's will, God's plan, God's provision in your life. So I wanted to ask you, what is your perspective and your understanding of actually surrendering to God? What does that mean for you?
To keep it simple, is just coming to the understanding that His way is better.
Good song.
His way is better. Like, that's it. Yeah. That His way is better. That's all. Mm-hmm. That His way is better. We try to do things our own way, but if He's God, He created the heavens and the earth, the entire universe, and He created us, then He knows what's best for our lives. Of course, we're living in a fallen world, a world where you can choose to do right or wrong, but true surrender is just coming to the understanding that God's way is better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that plays into, this culture right now, this current culture of, I ain't surrendering to nobody. You know what I'm saying? And I think there's a lot of misconceptions, because even with just that phrase, surrender to God, okay, how? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because if I do that, I don't really know what to do next. I don't fully know what that means. And I think it's an ongoing, like we even talked about at the beginning, it's an ongoing understanding and learning to understand what that means. Mm-hmm. And I think too many people get stuck at the beginning and then don't know how to progress, because I think it comes down to discipleship, and that's a whole different thing too. Of like, people don't know who to plug in with. Churches sometimes don't do a great job of that. A lot of the time, don't do a great job of that.
Yeah,
and that's a whole different thing. But how would you even start with surrendering to God? Like, what's the first step into doing that?
Coming to the end of yourself. For some people, it's those who aren't Christians and come to the end of themselves and come to salvation. And then sometimes you can come to Christ and then come to the end of yourself way later.
Yeah.
You know, so coming to the end of yourself, the end of your own way, your own plans, your own purposes for your life. Because you come to realize God will allow you to do whatever you desire. But when you desire that, or when you come to the understanding that if you go down that path, it may go good for a while, but because it's ultimately up to you, you're going to fail. You're going to go into anxiety and depression because of the plans you have for your life. They're not working out the way you think. And come to the realization where you understand, I can't do this on my own. I can try as hard as I can. I can structure my life in a way that is beneficial.
Yeah.
You know? But you find yourself very lonely by the end of it. So coming to the end of yourself. And I think it takes God to draw to a certain extent. Because in those times where you're at the end of yourself, the enemy can come in and take you even deeper. But it takes God drawing you near and drawing you to a place where you repent and turn to Him.
Yeah. I think let me go off on a point you just said. The enemy can come in, the devil can come in and deceive you into thinking maybe you're even surrendering. Because there's a story that I've just been stuck on. Genesis, obviously, Adam and Eve, and they were looking for something. They were looking for something positive. Yeah. They were looking for something good, and the devil comes in to corrupt something and to say, "Oh yeah, this is the way right here. This is, he's just trying to test you, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, it's actually this way. This is the way you should go, his way's better. This way right here.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if like that could be something that's like you think you're surrendering, but at the end of the day, it's almost like a side quest in a bad way.
Yeah.
That the enemy's just like, curveball, here you go, keep surrendering, and you're just stuck now because you were looking for something, but you were looking in the wrong place.
Wow.
It's like, how do we continue to seek God? And I think it comes back to being at the end of yourself. Of like, God, like, help me understand, help give me clarity, because that's where I've been stuck at sometimes too. Of like, the anxiety comes in. I think that's kind of your tells. When those feelings start coming in, I think you need to pause, right?
They're the alarm system of your body, like.
Yeah, if something's not matching, something's not right.
Yeah,
it's like the discernment in your spirit of like, nope, pause. Anxiety, pause. All right, look at things around you. What are you doing? What decisions are you making?
Yeah,
because I can feel like, for me, when those tells come, that's when I kind of feel like I'm off track a little bit, and I'm not fully surrendering. Maybe my pride's coming back, and I'm making my own plans again.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that kind of aspect?
Yeah, because when you get to that place, you can do one of two things: open yourself up and allow God to do the work, or you isolate in those moments where you become anxious, depressed in those situations.
Yeah. Fear.
Fear.
The God thing's not working for me. The church thing's not working for me.
Yeah. And
wow.
You'll close up and you'll isolate yourself, but that's what the devil wants. Of course, people aren't perfect, but God designed it for us to be in community with each other, because they're able to speak life in those situations where your emotions, they notify you something's not wrong in you. But instead of isolating, you got to learn to, okay, God, there's a reason I'm feeling this, in my spirit. I feel you've given me the discernment in this moment, like, because I'm feeling anxious. Maybe you got yourself there.
Yeah.
But God's allowing you to realize what's going on. But you have to turn to Him, not
That's
yourself.
Crazy. Because my normal instinct in those cases, I'm being as real as possible. My normal instinct, wall.
Yep.
That's how my flesh operates. That's how my mind naturally wants to operate. And it's something I'm working through. Like if I feel a certain type of way about a situation.
Yeah.
And that's what the enemy wants me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I so easily just like, okay, cut everybody off, do my own thing.
Ghost.
Isolate. Ghost. And I think it's so important to be able, when you feel those things like you said right now, when that anxiety comes in, lean into God. But why is it so hard, bro?
Yeah.
Why is it so hard for us to do that?
I think opening yourself up and leaning into God is going into a place of solitude and not isolation. Because I think there are certain times where God calls you to you tend to isolate yourself from people, but also God. And God doesn't want you to do that. He wants you to go to Him and be in solitude with Him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very difficult because, and maybe it's because of the way that we grow up.
Yeah.
We're programmed to respond to situations in a certain way because that's how we grew up.
Yeah.
And we were taught, whether like on purpose or subconsciously, we're taught to protect ourselves.
Yeah. I can pinpoint back to exactly why I started acting the way I do. At crucial moments of my life as growing up as a teen, like there were moments for my family that, from day to day, what in the situation that was going on, I wasn't sure if someone was coming to our house to come do something to us.
Yeah.
People that we thought were close to us. And then from one moment to the next, it was like, that's ripped out. And now you're on defense. And I think that puts something in me. And this is something I've thought a lot about, like, and try to break down and understand, seeking God, talking to people and mentors. And during that moment, anytime now, as I've grown up, that those feelings come of that, what that felt like then.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's taken me a long time. I am still working through that because anytime those feelings come, I feel some type of way about the church. I feel some type of way about people. And my response, my natural response because of what I've experienced, and this could be for anyone, you have to think back of your experiences. You have to think about traumas. You have to think about things that, why do I respond the way that I do now? And I know I can pinpoint back to certain moments in my life to where, okay, I know why I respond in a way of like, okay, you good. I'm not texting you back anymore.
Yeah.
Not receiving your calls no more. You're getting blocked on Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff.
Wow.
Because of certain things, So it's during those moments, like I am trying so hard to reverse that. To instead of my natural, response is to shut off, isolate. I'm trying so hard, bro, to lean into God more. Yeah. I'm trying. It's just very hard. I posted this the other day. I think you liked it.
Yeah.
On Threads. Shout out Threads. Love Threads.
Yeah.
But I said, man, it's so hard to be Christ-like.
Yeah.
It's so hard. Because everything my natural wants to do is not anything like that.
Nope.
And can you tell me about, do you have any thoughts on that specifically?
Yeah, so like Christ-like love, being Christ-like is selfless love. Sometimes you have to take the hit for things.
Wow.
Whether it comes to forgiving somebody, of course, you'll never forget if something happens. We got memories for a reason. We're never going to forget.
Bro, go ahead on forgiveness.
But forgiveness is deciding, regardless of how it made me feel, I'm going to forgive this person by taking the hit of what they did. because sometimes you want to exact vengeance to satiate your pride, your ego, your feelings, to make you feel better. But if you do that, it's only going to do much worse than actually bring some type of peace to your life, because true peace, even though it sounds weird or sounds like the opposite of what you would think it is, peace in those moments is letting that part of yourself die, because that's your flesh reaction.
Yeah.
So in those moments, to die to yourself, to take the blow. Of course, it's going to hurt. There's going to be times where whatever happened to you in the moment is going to remind you of things in the past. But it's when you take it to God in those moments that He makes sense of the pain, the trauma, the trials, the tribulations in your life, and really gives you a peace.
Yeah. I think, and I am still working through all this stuff, right? I'm in the middle. I'm not going to tell you I'm coming from a place of I know how to get there, or I'm there and here's how you. I'm not coming from that at all. All of this comes down to a choice every single time.
Mm-hmm.
You choose how you're going to respond to things. And too many times for me, I'm choosing the easier route.
Yeah.
Straight up,
mm-hmm.
Truth, right? Transparent. Because I've said this before, every day you wake up, you have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You have a choice to make. You're either going to choose to validate some of those feelings. And feelings is another thing, because feelings change one second to another. We can be bros right now.
Yep.
But some feelings can get in the way,
mm-hmm.
and that changes. Feelings are fleeting. Feelings are blah.
Yeah.
But the other side of things is fact.
Yeah.
Right? And you have a decision whether you're going to validate some things sometimes, or are you actually going to surrender whatever that is to God. Like, God, I don't understand, bro. Like, that's how I talk to God sometimes. Yeah. I'm being straight up right now. I'm like,
same here.
I just do not understand. Like, help me make sense of this. Instead of, like, sometimes I just be like, whatever then. Like, screw them. Cut off. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I thought this was the purpose I had for my life, God. Like, what's good? All right, I'm out then.
Mm-hmm.
It's a choice, bro. You have a choice whether you want to do that. You have a choice whether you want to lean in. Everything is a choice. I have a choice whether I want to show up and do this, or I want to just like, put my purpose to the side, put everything back in the closet, and make this into something else.
Yeah.
It all comes back to you choose how you're going to respond. Yeah. And going back to the surrendering piece, have you ever, do you have any story in your mind or a moment that comes to mind when surrendering in this moment was really hard and you almost didn't want to go through with surrendering to God, whether it was like a feeling or a plan, whatever? Was there ever a moment like that you can think of, as far as it's tough to surrender?
Yeah. I think most of you guys will be able to relate to this, Aaron.
Yeah.
2020.
Go ahead.
2020 happened. Before 2020, I had a 5-year plan for my life. I and it's good to have a 5-year plan. But I had a plan. I was going to take this job as a music director. It was going to pay $50,000 throughout the year.
Sure.
Would have got housing. And to a Christian musician, that seems like that's God right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's God. It's everything that...
Look at God.
You look at God. It aligns with your gift, your talent. It's seemingly going to be a place that takes you higher.
Yeah.
But then the pandemic hit.
Wow.
And I was like, are you serious, God? I'll have this job. I'll start saving money, then get a house, then do this, X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah.
And that whole 2020 was a refinement process. It took and it's still to this day, it's like you said, it's an everyday process, that process of sanctification.
Yeah. But
particularly in that moment, am I going to become bitter, or am I going to surrender to God? Because you can easily become bitter, especially if you think it was God.
Yeah.
If you turn it around on God, God, why'd you take this away from me? You become bitter towards Him. Did I do something wrong? What was it? I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
But it really took a pandemic in my life to reveal that pride in my own life, that sense of ego. Like, I was really seeking after everything else but him.
Yeah.
When it came to music career, finances, personal relationships, I was just seeking my own way and masking it, saying that it's God's way.
It's God, yeah.
Yeah. It's God's will for my life for this. Like, he's guiding me here. He gave me this gift to do this and this.
Yeah.
And really taking that whole process to really refine, to pull out things that didn't ever need to be there. And God being so loving that even though I put myself there, that he was willing to meet me where I was at and really do the work.
Yeah.
Because he loves us that much.
2020, bro. It was huge. Like, if you're a Christian leader, if you're not even Christian, let's make this more wide.
Yeah.
2020 didn't do anything but expose who you really were.
Yep.
It exposed your work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
It exposed your mental health. It exposed if you're a Christian. It exposed, are you really a Christian? Because you didn't have the church to give you your little fix on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Were you really reading your word like you try to pretend you do? It exposed all that.
Right.
And leaders disappeared. People changed up. All 2020 did was expose who you really were. And I'm grateful because I feel like at that time, some people really leaned into it, and it comes back to a choice.
Yeah.
Some people leaned in and you had an opportunity to really biblically invest in your stuff.
Yeah.
Some people did that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people didn't. And it was coming back to a choice. But 2020 was, it could have gotten, I'm glad that you see that, like, hindsight. And maybe you saw it in the moment too, but like, was it me? Was it my plan?
Mm-hmm.
And I just masked it because it was a Christian thing?
Yeah.
Or was it actually God? And you start thinking about that stuff. But yeah, do you have any, go ahead.
You have a vested interest in your own life, in your own plans, because you want it to go good for yourself.
Sure.
And I think a good thing to tie back to is Moses. I don't think Moses would have done what he done if he knew the amount of time they would have been in a desert.
Wow.
Because he didn't specifically tell them, God didn't specifically tell Moses that, oh, you're going to free people and go into the promised land, but before you go into the promised land, there's going to be like, you're going to struggle and be like so pressed about these people that I'm calling you to. I don't know if he would have done it.
Mm-mm. I mean, we can't say that, but yeah.
Speculation, of
right.
course. Because I'm thinking on my own life.
I would have done it.
Exactly.
If God would have told me and given me the clarity, you'd be like, all right, cool. You lead these people, right? Lead them to this line. You guys can see the promised land. All right, bet.
Bet, say less.
But if if you tell me, yeah, it's going to be hard. You might not even see it. And it's going to be a long, long time. Are you still doing it?
You're not even going to make it in.
How many times have we changed up because we got some vision from God, or we got a word from God, or a word from a pastor, and we got to a line to where I thought it wasn't supposed to be like this.
Right.
It wasn't supposed to look like this.
Yeah.
And they completely turned back. How many times have we done that?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And to like go on with your point, but yeah, 100%.
Because we have those vested interests in our own plans for our lives. We wanted to go marshmallows and daisies and Cloud9, shout out Cloud9. Just like everything.
Yeah.
Like we wanted to go so good. But we don't know the whole plan for our lives. Only God's outside of time. So he knows the end from the beginning. He knew everything that you would ever do.
Wow. Your responses to things.
He gave us a free will, of course. So we still have the choices, but he's able to look at all of time at a glance. So he knows not only our lives, but the way your free will affects mine. because I'm not just in a video game. The main character progresses through a story and it's written out, and everybody else is just a side character.
Just an NPC, bro.
Just an NPC. But each of us are created uniquely by God. Mm-hmm. So he loves me and he loves you. He has a plan and purpose for my life and for your life as well as everybody else. So that, and when you really start to think about that and how intricate that is,
yeah,
you can see how many times our own plans for our lives are very selfish and just us focused, to where, going back to saying this is actually God when it's actually me, and masking it because we so want the best for me.
Yeah.
But we see that with God and Jesus in particular, that the higher road is, it's not about me. It's about everybody else. How I love and serve God, love and serve others.
I think it's so important to always keep that reminder when we're walking through this life, when we're navigating transition, challenges, purpose. I can think back to my dad's probably, I look up to him obviously the most. He's spiritual father, obviously my real on earth father. But he and me, it reminds me of the story of Moses a little bit, because my dad made some decisions that would change our legacy. And he thought, and he might still, I don't know how the end is. We're pastors, right? We've grown up in certain denominations. He made a choice to change up because he got a word from God, take them out of this denomination, started doing our own thing. My dad always thought he would be the one. I don't know if he thought that, but did he always think that he was going to see it?
Yeah.
What it was for, right? The hard decision where people turned on him, people unfriended him.
Wow.
Like in real life, not just on social, but because he wasn't a part of a certain group, right? He made a complete left turn when everyone, his family, his friends were all going right. He knew that he needed to make a change, and that was going to be really hard. So now, obviously, we're about 15 years removed from the decision. My dad is in a little bit of a different place. A little frustrated.
Yeah.
Because, God, I thought I was supposed to see, why this was all, what was this all for? What was all the hardship for?
Yeah.
And then me, being the son, thinking that I'm going to inherit, it was for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he did it. That's why he did it, God. Or that's why he did it, Dad. He made that decision because I'm going to see it. Not for my dad to see it. I'm going to be the one to see it. My family, right? It's going to be me leading the charge now and taking us over the finish line, the promised land, and all that stuff. All that was for us. But now I'm getting older, and I'm like, I haven't seen it. Like we have legacy of all of this. My dad made this decision. I thought it was going to be for me.
Yeah.
Now the older I'm getting, I have 2 kids now. I'm like, coming to that understanding and correcting my heart posture, correcting the way that I think. I'm like, it might not even be for me. All those hard things, the legacy that my dad has completely changed and for the good, probably isn't for me.
Yeah.
It might be for them, the girls.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be.
Yeah.
But that was important, and it reminds me of Moses so much because, and I'm going to ask him because I'm going to talk to him pretty soon on the podcast. It's like, would you have done the decisions that you made as far as making a complete left turn and changing everything for your family if you knew you weren't going to see it? That's crazy, huh?
Yep.
It's like, it's really coming to the understanding and just God's plan, his way is better, regardless if I walk through that door of the promised land ever or not. fully surrendering my plan, my life, my decisions, surrendering to God regardless if I see anything in return. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Especially on this side of the globe.
We're so privileged.
We're so privileged.
Yep.
And just think about, there's what's called the absolute will of God and the passive will of God. The absolute will of God is what has to happen. Canon events. Mm-hmm. They are canon events that have to happen in time.
Yeah.
The passive will of God is the will that takes into account the free will of a human being. And we have to understand that when we go through life, we're going to make those decisions. Like what you're saying, like, would your dad have made that decision or not if he knew what was going to happen? It's real difficult to let alone think that, but to think of how he went through it.
Yeah.
And when you understand that God's way is better and the complexity of what that means, mm-hmm. At least for us, like for me in particular, it brings a sense of peace to my life, because there are going to be those in the world that are going to come to Christ and are going to die as a result, being persecuted for their faith, living a life that doesn't have any of the prosperous things that we necessarily have here in the West.
Yeah.
And then for some people, they're going to be able to get their dream home in life, have a family, come to Christ and be comfortable. Mm-hmm. And like what you're saying, coming to like a place where your way, God, whatever it is, like, and what you were saying in the beginning before the cameras were on, whether it's for 10 people or for 100, for some people, their life, the purpose and plan for, that God has for a particular person in life, for one person, it might be to sing, to preach in front of thousands of people, or in a small church in a small town of 5 to 10.
Yeah.
But as long as you're in the purpose and plan and will of God for your life, that's where you're going to experience the most growth, the most peace, the most fulfill that purpose that God has for you.
Yeah.
And it's coming to terms with understanding that his way is better, ultimately in the end.
Yeah.
Because sometimes our own ego gets in the way, desiring like, man, I want to be in front of a crowd of thousands, performing my songs, or having that cinematographer credit on this big project, or directing something.
Speak, bro.
And it's that, I think it's, God gives us vision for a purpose, of course.
Yeah.
But it's always about turning around and surrendering that back to God. Yeah. Just like what we do with our finances, what we do with our family, do that with our plans too. Because he gave us gifts for a reason, to serve our purpose.
Yeah.
But because we're fallen human beings, our flesh gets in the way of that.
Yeah.
God's way is better.
I think, to echo, what if his plan for your life, when you talk about even like, maybe I'll never, even for this podcast, we'll make it real practical. Maybe my purpose was only to create for 10 people, for 10 people that watch, right? What if that's it? Am I going to stop because I know it's never going to be beyond that? Maybe like, we live in the West. We live in a culture that is about chasing monetary stuff.
Yes.
Right? But what if God's purpose for your life, and this goes, I don't like prosperity gospel. That's what bugs me the most. What if the purpose for your life, and God wants great things for you. That's not what I'm saying. But what if his purpose is you're never going to get out the hood? Because you're supposed to be there making a difference.
Yes.
What if your church is never going to be beyond 20 people? What if you're not going to graduate school?
Yeah.
What if it's just not in the cards? What if you're never going to have kids? Maybe that was the purpose that God... Pops, you're not going to see it. You're not going to see why... Dang, I'm going to get emotional right now, bro. You're not going to see why you made the decisions you did. Wow. What if you don't? It's crazy because I had some friends that just went on a missions trip, and they obviously come back completely transformed and completely almost frustrated with how we do things here. Because we take everything for granted.
Yes.
We don't keep Jesus at the very center of, like, none of the other crap matters, bro. Straight up. The overproduction of stuff, what we do in the West.
Yeah.
Everything is blown out of proportion when everything is so simple with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes back to surrendering and why we don't get to see the full picture. And I'm preaching to myself now. Because if you saw the full picture, would you go through with it? Right? Let me break this down even further. Illustration time. Right? Dang, I am a preacher's son. What is going on here? Have you watched Avengers? Endgame. Yes. Iron Man. Mm-hmm. Doctor Strange sees all the outcomes. And Tony Stark says, how many do we win? And he's like, I can't. How many do we win? 1. And Tony is obviously like, all right, cool. Like, this sucks. But he keeps moving, right? He goes through a period of completely...
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He goes through a period of isolation and, like, this is just what it is, whatever. But gets back in the fight and going through this journey, going through this fight. He's fighting the hardest fight with Thanos and the whole squad, right? They're just giving everything. He's giving everything. No regard for himself. He is surrendering his body. He is surrendering his plans. Understanding that he might not even see his daughter, right? He might not see her and see it through. He might not see what it looks like after everyone's back. And at the very end, he has to make a decision. And Doctor Strange is just sitting in the corner. If you've seen this movie, you're picturing it with me right now. Yep. And he looks at Doctor Strange and he goes like this. And Tony knows that he's literally, without knowing how it was going to play out, knowing that, oh, it's me. Like, I'm about to take this for the team, and that's it. It's a wrap. But this is the only way.
Yeah.
What if he had known, like Doctor Strange probably understood, if he knew what he needed to do, would he have done it? Mm-hmm. And that is complete surrender.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's being okay with the understanding, and this got way more deep than I wanted it to, but that's amazing because people need to hear it.
Yeah.
It's coming to the understanding of keep moving one step at a time. Don't become anxious. Stop being scared of what tomorrow is. And this is a very cliche message, but it's something that I've struggled with a lot. Because, yeah, you made this big transition in your life. You have everything in your mind of what your family's done to get you to this point.
Yeah.
You've made some decisions that are still changing your family's legacy. And you're asking God, I don't know what you're doing. Help me see, like, what am I doing here? Because for me, I'm such a realist.
Yeah.
And I want to see, like, what am I doing this for? Why am I sitting right here with Klay right now? Like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. I need more clarity. But God's like, pulling a Doctor Strange. You feel me? You can't. No. Yeah. You just need to keep moving and discerning and making the right turns because there's some canon events that need to happen. Come on, bro.
And because he desires that intimacy and relationship. If you knew the plan, would you go back to him tomorrow?
If you knew there was no heaven, What are you doing? You still serving?
That's real, bro. Because then if you knew the plan for your life, you'd want to edit it. I can avoid that 2-year period where I can still get there, not realizing that to get there, it takes that. But like you said.
The one. Wow. I think that's... I don't want to go much further than that because I don't want to take too much more of your time. But
I do want to go through...
Please. This is probably my favorite podcast I've ever done. I'm not even going to cap.
Nah, I feel like that's...
What?
I don't know.
Like that's cap?
I don't know. I mean, like...
What are you talking about?
I don't know. See, that's where that kind of like insecurity comes up. I'm like, nah, bro. Like...
You've been so confident this whole time. Get that out of here.
Psalm 73. You guys can read the whole thing for yourself. I'll just take some...
It's in the description. You guys can look at it.
Yeah. And this is a beautiful psalm because it's a real... Broski that wrote it is keeping it 100.
He's keeping it a buck right now.
So we start off in verse 1. It says, God is good to those whose hearts are pure. Mm-hmm. But then he keeps it real. But as for me, I almost lost my footing. My feet were slipping. I was almost gone. Why? In verse 3, for I envied the proud and saw them prosper despite their wickedness. Whew. They seem to live such painless lives. Their bodies are so healthy and strong. They don't have troubles like other people. They're not plagued with problems like everybody else. Sometimes we doubt the plan of God for our life because we're looking at other people seemingly prospering and not taking, like, they're not even living for God. They're just living for themselves and they seem to have it so good. So he keeps it a buck. He's like, man, I'm kind of jealous. Like, am I... We skip down to verse 13. Did I keep my heart pure for nothing? Did I keep myself innocent for no reason? Because I get nothing but trouble all day long. Mm-hmm. Every morning brings me pain.
Yo, that's deep.
16. So I tried to understand why the wicked prosper, but it was a difficult task. But verse 17. Then I went into your sanctuary, O God, and I finally understood. What did he understand? We skip all the way down. Then I realized that my heart was bitter, and I was all torn up inside. I was so foolish and ignorant. Yet I still belong to you. You hold my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, leading me to a glorious destiny. Who do I have in heaven but you? I desire you more than anything on the earth. Though my heart may fail me and my spirit may grow weak, God remains the strength of my heart. He came to the realization, like, that God's way is better. The world's way, the way of the flesh, living your life for yourself, even if it's seemingly a positive thing, positive plan.
Like you're a good person.
Like you're a good person. God has this seemingly good plan for your life. Worship leader, 50,000.
Sure.
It's ministry. I'm gifted in music. This is a perfect fit for...
God made me for this.
God made me for this. Coming to the understanding God's way is better. Finally finishing off at the end. As for me, how good is it to be near God? For I have made him my shelter, and I will tell everyone about the wonderful things that he has done. God's way, even though it might be hard, even though there might be seasons of drought, it's not that God willed it and weaved it into your story, but he took what was going to happen to you into account and shifted it for your good. We see that at the end of Joseph's story, and it's so beautiful at the end of Genesis. He's looking at his brothers coming before him, and they're asking for forgiveness. but they're faking it because they just don't want to get killed.
Yeah.
And Joseph, the crybaby, always, he wants to cry every time he sees his brothers. He's like, who am I to judge you? Am I God to judge you? You meant it for evil, but God turned it for my good. Mm-hmm. And for a purpose, so that many people might be saved. So surrender. God's way is better. I understand you'll go through seasons in life. Maybe you're at the beginning of the journey in Psalm 73. Yep. You're right in the middle, or you've come to the realization in the end that his way is better. It's worth it.
Period. You heard it. That was a... Yes. This is why I do this, bro.
Yeah.
So the last person I had on he was asking me, like, hey, well, yeah, why do you like to do this? It's like, one, it keeps me, like, doing community, gets me connected to other people that have a similar, whether it's similar struggle or just similar understanding. But it's also, I feel like people need to hear it sometimes. And to end on this note, I don't know what you've heard before, but this life, trying to be Christ-like, I posted this the other day. It is so hard. Yes, there are some amazing things, right? We know technically the end of the story.
Yeah.
We know that last canon event, right? Mm-hmm. But when we said yes to Jesus, we literally enlisted in some war.
Yeah.
We enlisted in the army. Like, it must sound super. We enlisted in the army of the Lord.
Super Pentecostal.
You feel me? So this thing ain't easy, man. And that's why it's so important for me to fight my natural response to want to just do things on my own. I'm like a hybrid introvert. Like, I can be out, but my natural, when things get kind of weird, I want to isolate.
Same.
Like, don't talk to me, that whole deal. But that's why it's so important to connect with people very similar to the way you maybe even think, and then finding people you can do life with.
Yeah.
Right? Because this thing is hard, and if you're doing it by yourself, that ain't it, buddy.
Yep.
Not it, buddy. But yeah, man, I appreciate you for coming on. I feel like this is not the last time. I hope it's not the last time. I hope you had some fun.
I had some fun.
Cool. So, hey, go follow Klay on Instagram. Go follow his stuff. His links will all be in the description, along with the passage we just read. Read it in some different versions. Read it in the version he just read. Read it in a couple different versions just to get some different perspectives and different ways of looking at some things. But yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. If you got some comments for us, drop them down below. But I will see you on the next one. Peace.